Alrighty, we're going.
Do it.
So today we have our our people, Christina and Tori.
Sorry, Krishna.
Sorry, Krishna, Tori. So how are we all doing tonight? Today, this afternoon?
I'm tired. I'm on the downswing of a little manic episode, and I'm PMSing.
Oh, well, what a great time to do a
to interact with other people. Yeah.
I, on the other hand, feel great. I look directly in the camera, feeling good.
Nice. Oh, we got camera back there. Cool. So let's introduce ourselves. We know me, and we're about to know you guys. So tell me a little bit about like your recovery and like your experience. You don't have to like fucking go all from beginning to end or like AA shares, but just so we can get a gist of like where you're at and what that looks like to you.
All right, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now.
Exactly, not that.
I'm literally joking,
I know.
dude. All right, I'll go first. I'm Christina Mitchell. I work here at Rebel. I'm a case manager. I've worked here for 4 years, which is absolutely shocking because holding down a job was not a thing I was capable of doing. Yeah, basically I did a lot of heroin for a real long time, a lot of crack, some PCP benders that I like to brag about because not many people have done PCP, so it's kind of
not
my
in
like
Florida for sure.
No, it's my party trick, just having like a weird PCP time at like 18 years old. But yeah, no, I'm in recovery. It's been about almost 6 years of just constant growth, getting knocked down and getting back up again, like Chumbawamba says. And yeah, basically that's it. A lot of trial and error with different pathways, but I've found just not putting anything that makes my life, my relationship to it, cause chaos in my life. I just avoid doing that. And that's it. And it's been pretty good for like the better half of a decade. So
Oh yeah.
that's it. I just try not to be a dick to people. Is that okay if we swear? Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Oh, nice. No. I mean, I was like, I wouldn't say like hardcore like 12-step in the beginning, but like that was like what I was doing, and that's where I found like kind of an immediate like I'm gonna die, like I need to do something. And now I don't really like do the 12-step thing. Like I just more so do like what I learned as far as like being nice to people, like checking in and making sure that like I'm not being a dickhead to not only myself and others, like doing that like inventory kind of stuff. Because like I don't know, the longer I stayed like in recovery, stayed abstinent, whatever, like I just didn't really subscribe to a lot of things that, you know, were kind of pushed. Which is like not to down, like I don't like to downplay like anything, but and like talk shit down like on anything. It's just like different things from different things. You know that like old saying of like take what you need and leave the rest or whatever. Like that's basically what my recovery is now. Like definitely like big into the spirituality piece. Definitely big into like fostering relationships with people and like I still go to my home group, all that kind of stuff. I've had the same home group. It's once a week. I go to that. It's just me and my girlfriends. Just checking in once a week, and that's what works for me today. Like I don't need to go to 500, 25,600 meetings. I'm so tired. Can we go to Tori now?
Doing good. Let's go to Tori.
Hey guys, I'm Tori.
Hi Tori.
Tori, same question.
So I'm Tori. I work here at Rebel also. I'm a supervisor here. I've been abstinent for around 4 years, mainly heroin, drug of choice, abstinence based, same kind of stuff as Christina, just keeping a conscious contact with God, keeping in healthy relationships with people.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah. You do a lot of like self-help books and stuff
yeah,
like that.
I absolutely crush the self-help books. I find that to be nice.
Yeah. That's cool. Did you like do 12-step at some point?
I did, yeah. I started out with 12 steps. I still consider myself to be a member of AA, but I don't like really do the meeting thing as much as I used to. I'm not actively sponsoring, so I kind of have like a weird relationship with AA as of right now, but I like kind of what Christina said. I like live by the tenets of AA, but
Still
I'm not as involved in the community.
The steps into practice and stuff like that. Just
like the keeping a conscious contact with God, trying to help people as much as I can, keeping like a community of people that care about me and I care about them, just the whole nine.
Like, I've had this conversation with my dad, who's like not in recovery by any means, and it's like, I think everybody should like check in and see what, not like defects, but like what kind of things about you can you work on that like affect other people negatively around you, therefore affecting yourself negatively. Like, check in with that, see what kind of like resentments or patterns you have in your life that like can be found in a fourth step. Like, what's going on? What are these patterns I have? Like, I found in my patterns was a lot of just, if I had this X, Y, and Z, like, then I'd be happy. And then I eventually learned how to, like, create my own happiness. And then, like, the end steps, the maintenance steps of, like, literally apologizing when you're being an asshole. Like, that's something that, like, everybody should have. And I don't feel like I have to, like, say I'm part of this thing to, like, have that. Right. That's kind of just, like, growing and being a good person. I feel like.
I mean, like, that's one of the things that kind of frustrates me the most about some of the, like, more exclusionary aspects of a lot of 12-step fellowships is, like, if you're, I don't know, I just don't think, like, it should be one of those things where, like, it needs to be, like, you have, like, this problem and, like, this is the way that you address it, like, strictly abstinence. And, like, that's what it takes to be able to get anything out of this. Because, I don't know, I always say, like, it might sound cheesy,
New word.
cliche.
Cliche and cheesy,
Much
I like
better
that.
word. Cliche. Yeah. Start putting it into use.
Somebody call Urban Dictionary.
Yeah. You could probably upload that on Urban Dictionary.
Okay, I got your night, buddy.
That I'm kind of, like, grateful for the fact that, like, serious problematic substance use was my issue for a couple of reasons. For one, like, I think at the end of the day, like, everybody has their thing, whether it's just kind of being an asshole or, like, having some, like, far worse, like, predilection to deal with that, like, in terms of, like, the way it affects you in your life and your relationships with other people than substance use. But, so, like, it could be worse. But also, it's one of those things, like, for me, that it forced me to do something. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be alive for much longer, like, for sure. And
like, to go back to your, like, what you said about, like, oh, if you're not abstinent, then you can't get anything out of, like, what the framework of the steps. Like, that's, like, when people, like, I've heard, I'm sure you have too, like, we've known each other for a long time and had these discussions of, like, if someone's on, like, Suboxone or any kind of maintenance, like, how does that inherently mean that they are completely incapable of, like, checking in with themselves and apologizing to people when they've done so? Like, I don't how does that make it so that they don't have a God or a higher power that they can believe in? Like, if you're on MAT, then you're so blocked off because of that you can't achieve, like, spiritual wellness. Right. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Or even just, like, somebody who either, like, never had problematic substance use, but, like, wants to, like, do some deep diving into themselves, or had problematic substance use, but, like, uses, like, things not problematically in moderation. Like, everybody can get something out of those principles, and it's actually, like, a really good and well laid out, like, simplified step-by-step process of living a decent life and being a good person.
Right. Well, they call it a blueprint for living, and they're not wrong about that. But what becomes wrong is when it's a blueprint for living, but only for these people. If you don't follow what we say is law, then you don't get the blueprint for living. You know, it's like that deservingness thing, which is fucked up and draws a lot of people away from, like, more growth.
Right. And it's not, like, ever based in anything, like, realistic, like you were saying. Like, how does that, like, actually inhibit somebody from, like, doing those things to work on themselves and take a personal inventory? Like, it's an in-group, out-group kind of deal. And, like,
Well, I think the point of it is that it's a starting off point. Like, I agree with what you guys are saying, but I think the whole point of it is to have, like, a clear mind and for the first time in your life feel all the feelings, like, completely uninhibited. Like, I think that's the point. Like, some people call it exclusionary, but, like, I think it's more of a starting off point. Like, at least in the very beginning, like, it's probably good to take a break from everything if you can.
Yeah,
like I think that's kind of what they're going for with it.
I understand what you're saying on that. I'm speaking on, I guess, like more of a broad sense that like if you're not a person that ever had like those issues,
right, yeah.
then but like so you have no reason to, but I mean we could all benefit from those things, and that's kind of, I mean that's where I was going with like kind of being thankful that I was forced to, because I was in 12-step fellowship, and I did like I continue to use those principles and put those steps into practice. But I think like a lot of people could really benefit from that in some way, but it is very in group, out group. Like there is that thing to it, and I mean that's just what happens with anything organized where people get together.
A lot of politicking in any type of gathering of anything.
Well, back to what you were saying about how like getting on drugs was a good thing for you because it brought you to like AA and working on yourself. I've said that like a million times before. The best thing that ever happened to me in my life was getting addicted to heroin for that reason. Because if I wouldn't have been addicted to heroin, I would have just been like walking around just like a miserable fuck and had no idea like why. And then the big thing for me that AA did was like more or less tricked me into believing in God.
Yeah.
And so that was like without heroin that wouldn't have happened. So that facilitated that.
Right.
So
I mean, yeah, it like being, someone that used drugs totally problematically to the point where like homelessness was the end. Underlying all that like problematic drug use was a lot of untreated like mood disorder, depression, like stuff that like I didn't know how to navigate. And like had I not been like shipped to Florida and like presented with like actual psychiatric care that like wasn't just trying to like prescribe me, like tell me I'm bipolar within like 3 days of like a heroin detox, like after that happened, like, and I actually met with like real clinicians that like were not interested in like insurance or anything like that. Like they were interested in like figuring out like not what was wrong with me, just like what wasn't working for me. And like turns out like I have like mood disorders and I have like these things that like heroin made better but also worse at the same time. So it was a lot of like navigating through like, well, what am I doing that affects this? What was I born with? What was like, what's genetic, like all this stuff. And like now I'm like the most stable I've ever been. And it's because I was presented that opportunity from like desolation to like actual health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then not to like discount, so like we could all probably agree that, like the best thing that's happened to us, or like the thing that really brought us to where we are today, is getting like dependent on whatever substance. I mean, we're all kind of heroin folk here.
We're heroin guys.
Yeah.
That was really loud.
But like on top of that, at least for myself and like some of what you just said, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of like alludes to like I would have probably like offed myself if I didn't have heroin when I did.
100%.
Like both for like mental stability and more so for me like physical pain.
Before heroin, my shtick was like non-suicidal self-injury and a lot of suicidal ideations and attempts. Yeah. So it's like then I found a thing that like I guess wasn't. I mean, yeah, it was like could have killed me, but it wasn't like the intention wasn't inherently to like kill myself. It was to just not even fix, but just like I don't want to say numb because that sounds sleazy, but to just manage, just somehow manage like whatever neuro pathways were going absolutely fucking bonkers in my mind that could like, take me all the way up there, all the way down there without, amphetamines. Right. That was just me, baby.
Right.
So fuck.
I'm not gonna lie, that sleazy word that really just.
Did you like the way I slid? That was so right smooth. The way I slid that in.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, nice. Good for you.
Yeah.
So, back to like the exclusionary part of 12-step fellowships. So it's easy, like as people who work in harm reduction and work with a lot of people who like take different pathways and like we work within multiple pathways of recovery, and a lot of us here practice different pathways of recovery. It's easy to like get stuck into like this like just for lack of a better word and like oversimplification of it, like 12-step AA bad, like open mind good, and that it's more than that, but just to make that easy. But like that's like the same shit on the other side. And there is a lot of there's like portions of the harm reduction community like we've talked about that are exclusionary in their own right. And I mean, like I've had people in the harm reduction community and like people that I'm close to that also work in harm reduction have also had the same thing, where people will kind of be like, well, yeah, but you could shoot heroin tomorrow and be all right. Like, you know.
No, the fuck I couldn't.
Right.
Literally, no, the fuck I couldn't.
Right. And not going to try it either way.
Don't really want to rock the boat right now, man.
Yeah,
things are going pretty well.
Yeah, and it like to me, like that's literally the same thing. Like that's no different. It's the exact same, but like a mirror image as telling somebody like you can't possibly maintain your recovery by doing anything but being abstinent. Right. Like if you're gonna like say one way or the other, like it's the same shit. And there is that culture, or can be that culture of harm reductionists who kind of want to deny like the potential harms that come with substance use and the consequences that certainly can come from substance use.
Well, we've talked about this before, just shooting the shit is like the word harm reduction. It's not just called reduction, right?
Yeah.
There's harm.
Yeah. It literally implies it in the name.
Yeah. So like it's, I don't know. And I feel like that subset of the community, however small or large it may be in the harm reduction world, is like forgetting the fact that abstinence, quite literally, whether it's 12-step or not, remaining abstinent from substances if they've caused harm in your life is harm reduction. Like that is harm reduction for me, because I know that I can't use in moderation. I know because I've tried all of those pathways before and I found the thing that reduces harm to basically none for me, which is abstinence. And it doesn't matter if it's through 12-step, it's through antidepressants and mood stable, all of these combinations of things, which is a whole nother thing too, by the way, in the exclusionary part of like medication, even if it's like non, psychoactive or whatever.
Even though there's like an entire approved AA on AA on medication.
Yeah,
but
it does literally say outside issues seek help.
Yeah.
I mean, AA doesn't really work on people's like mood disorders because they're not doctors.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Nor should they like try to be.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, Lorna?
About what?
I don't know. Anything?
Lorna's dissociating.
No.
Somewhere up there.
No, I was just listening to you guys. No, I mean, people fucking suck in every community. Like, there's some people that are going to be egotistical assholes and try to tell other people what to do with things and try to put labels on what harm reduction is and isn't and try to fucking control the psych meds of members of AA members, but it really doesn't matter, does it? That's kind of why I wasn't really adding to it. It's like, yeah, some people fucking suck.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I mean, yeah. I'm just
the only thing where it, like, actually matters is when it comes to, like, closing people off from things that could potentially be helpful to them. Like, I remember, like, being early in recovery. Like, this is the one thing that has pissed me off through and through and will always piss me off is the such heavy focus on, in, like, NA, for example. Like, no hate to NA, but the meetings I would go to here, newcomers, right? New people in recovery just coming in the meeting for the first couple times, saying the word sober instead of clean. They don't even know that technically they're not supposed to do that. Like, and they get either, like, yelled at, made fun of, laughed out of the meeting. Like, how is that supposed to be a welcoming environment to, like, try and better your life? You know what I mean? Like, does it really fucking matter that much that this kid who's still shaken from fucking detox said sober over clean.
Right.
Really? It matters that much? And I think it's just like, you know how we were talking about the Stanford Prison experiment?
Yeah.
It's like these power trips, these ego trips, right? They just like come into play when in any community, like you said, any group of people, like people get a little taste of power and they go fucking insane with it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, you said the wrong word.
Yeah, I used to hear that, and like
So
I
insane.
didn't like really believe that that was something that actually happened in those meetings until I actually saw it happen. Like that, like, it just didn't seem like. I felt like people were exaggerating by like somebody's reaction to using like the wrong word in a meeting until I saw it, and I was like, oh, this is actually something that happens. But on top of that, it happens in other meetings too, in other meetings that were literally designed for people who felt cast out and uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Of those meetings, like there are meetings like Mara and Harm Reduction Works, and I really like I don't know if you can call it a fellowship, but the support group of Harm Reduction Works. But there are
never heard
people I've seen, like, what's that?
I haven't heard. I know because
Yeah,
I
you
remember.
have. You used to help run Harm Reduction Works.
No, I know,
meetings.
but this was. What are you talking about? Is it an offshoot of that? The support of Harm Reduction Works?
Well, they're like support groups. I don't know if they call it like
yeah,
a
no, I remember
fellowship.
chairing
Yeah.
it.
I thought you like totally spaced on like what Harm Reduction
Well,
Works.
I mean,
Like,
COVID
wait,
was like a
what?
hard time for me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like went
I guess
quite
it wouldn't
literally
be that
insane.
far out, yeah.
But yeah, no, I remember chairing those. That was a good time.
Yeah, hell yeah. So, there was like once a little kerfuffle on the
Dude, Austin with the fucking vocab tonight, boys.
I like kerfuffle on the Facebook group of like the Harm Reduction Works Facebook group, and I don't remember like a specific. I kind of think it was clean, but there was something that like people were talking about like a word, and people were getting like real worked up about somebody coming in and using like basically the wrong language, and it became this thing where there were people from where I stand a little more like reasonable minded that were saying, well, these people are coming, like they literally come to this meeting, this one specifically, because they've been outcasted or excluded from other meetings or made to feel uncomfortable there. And then they're coming here and using the language that they've learned in their experiences at those meetings. And as opposed to like trying to like have these discussions where we can better inform people about like why we use specific language here or don't use it, just like attack them and literally do the exact same thing.
Like imagine being in like elementary school and like every time you got an answer wrong, the teacher just like came up and like punched you in the face and told you you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know any better, how are you supposed to do any better? And then how are you supposed to want to continue to engage in the new place you're coming to if everyone there is treating you like shit just because you're ignorant, not in the sense of like you're an idiot, ignorant because you just don't know.
Right.
I hate it here.
So what's it like for you guys, like as abstinence-based recovery folk working in a harm reduction agency, and have like you ever felt, I feel like we, you know, Rebel, in the early days of Rebel, it was like mostly abstinence-based people. I think I was like one of the first ones that was like,
I think you were.
yeah, I was like had a different type of recovery. And now it's like it's a good mix. But you know, what is it like? Have you guys ever felt like a certain way in maybe not necessarily at Rebel, but in your kind of broad work as people that are harm reductionists, just having that experience specifically? Tori's got a weird look. Did I
was
weird that
no,
word?
I was
I
thinking.
want her to field this one before I talk.
No,
I'm hot and heavy over here.
No, good. Someone has to. No, I'm trying to figure out why I don't really have strong opinions on this right now. I think it's because I'm not really wrapped up, like, I'm not around the people who are particularly political about harm reduction, and the way that I see it is that, like, it's important that people have access to healthcare and clean needles. It's important people have access to Narcan. I don't give a fuck if they want to smoke crack or shoot heroin. Like, that doesn't affect me. I just want everyone to be safe. And then if they can stay safe long enough to find some kind of recovery that works for them, that's awesome. But yeah, I don't, I'm not in the forums or like the 4chan pages of like
I don't know
the
if there's
political.
4chan. I imagine
You're on Omegle just yelling at random people.
Have you
I
ever
don't
been
go on
on 4chan?
Omegle and talk to people that scream about harm reduction or like, I've also never really talked to anyone in AA that has seemed particularly upset about the needle exchange piece. And
that's fortunate.
Yeah, but if I did, I wouldn't. I don't know. It's hard to say why, because I don't really.
Have you, like, when you were I'm in charge now.
Go for it. Ask questions.
Because I feel bad because I'm kind of just sitting here, but I don't spend enough time like talking to people that give me a hard time.
So you're the peer supervisor now.
Yeah.
So take away, like, I know that seems that, like, we're talking about, like, people that we get, like, argumentative with. You know I'm on the internet a lot more.
Yeah.
We've had this talk. But, like, before you became supervisor and, like, as a peer, like, if you're meeting with, like, your participants that are, like, on subs or, like, whatever.
Sure.
Like, and they know that you're absence-based, did you feel any, like, disconnect? Or, like, did you feel that you were, like...
I felt disconnect in the sense that I've never personally been on Suboxone, but I can wrap my head around what it's like to be on Suboxone. There would be issues where they would talk about wanting to be part of a 12-step program, and they would get shit from certain members of AA, and I think that sucks because the way I view it is that AA is the perfect program. I think that, like, the 12 steps in and of themselves...
That close.
It's just when the people actually get involved.
But it's the same thing with, like,
agree
religion or
agree
even anything. It's like, there can be, like, some perfect tenet of how to live life, but then once other people get involved, it just runs by ego, and they want to tell everyone else their interpretation of it, and people end up dying. So that sucks to see, but then the good news is that, like, AA is set up in a way to where if this home group is whack, people can vote on it, and you can go somewhere else. And I feel like... I guess I'm hesitant to why I was sort of hesitant to jump in on the conversation is because I don't want to jump on the bandwagon of, like, people in AA are fucking exclusive or people in harm reduction are fucking edgy assholes. Like, it's like, some people fucking suck. Some people don't. Like, if you go to a meeting and someone talks shit to you, dude, just go to another one. You'll be all right.
Well, I think, like, that...
I'm sorry if I sound like a jerk.
No, but I get what you're saying.
It's weird because I'm on camera, and if this was more organic, like, I'd talk freely, but I don't want this, like,
pretend there's
taken
no
out of
camera.
context.
But no, you're
when
fine.
you run for office, dude, I can't wait to use this against you. She's gonna, like, try and, like, she's gonna pull, like, a Kamala that's like, I'm all for police reform, even though her whole career is, like, built up just incarcerating people.
I can't stop incarcerating people.
Tori's gonna be like, I'm running on a platform of harm reduction only.
I'm afraid to speak freely because my secrets will come out.
Yeah.
Dude, Tori's getting canceled.
No,
I totally understand what you're saying, but I think, like, when we're on this, what you call bandwagon, so to speak, it's more like, because I understand where you're coming from, and it sounds like, or at least I could imagine that your experiences are not necessarily like my experiences or the experiences that a lot of people that come to Rebel for help have in those fellowships. And so, like, when I'm talking about things in this way, it's not about any specific meeting or group of meetings, but there is a similar underlying experience that people have when they go into 12-step fellowships on MAT or with a different form of recovery, and that's not across the board by any means. I had a home group that I chaired that I was perfectly content with and had no issues from anybody about the way my recovery was at the time.
Yeah.
But I also had a lot of other experiences, and even more so worked with a lot of people who had really intensely negative experiences. And I mean, I know people who were told to get off methadone, and within 3 weeks they were dead. And so,
who told them that?
There's their fucking sponsorship families.
And they fucking listen to that guy. He's not a doctor.
Right.
But when you're new and you don't fucking know and you're trying not to die.
And the doctor...
and sometimes you do.
And your therapists are telling you to go to this place and listen.
Yes.
You know, like there's...
If it was like an isolated incident and these experiences weren't so commonplace for people, then I'd say, yeah, this discussion's kind of whatever. But it's like, dude, Austin, you're like 3 for 3 with good words tonight. Cleasy, kerplunk, kerfuffled, and moot. Good job. Thanks. But yeah, it's like a lot of the stuff, it just gets like talked about so much that it like does become like irritating. It's like, oh, I don't want to fucking even talk about this anymore. Like, what's, but it's like, if it is so commonplace, I think that continuing to have the discussions and shed light on it, especially from the perspective of people that like do pretty much actively work at like a 12-step framework of like recovery. Like I said, I've been going to the same home group for 6 years almost. Like, I do service in that home group. I do sponsor people when they ask. Like, it's been kind of difficult since the pandemic because I don't like go to in-person meetings anymore. But I still find qualms with it. And I think that to like blindly follow what like some old book that like some stockbroker that was cheating on his wife wrote, like it doesn't make it law, bro. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to kind of like at least touch on it with you guys, because of like where you're coming from in your recovery, because I can have like a lot of people on here that have those experiences and have like gotten kind of cast out of those things, and they can talk about that because their recovery looks different. But y'all's recovery looks like the people who cast them out recovery, other than the way that you go about helping other people. And so like it kind of hits different when it's coming from somebody who who is like actively working a program in 12 steps, or at least like maintains abstinence-based recovery in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because like I think that to again hammer in blindly following anything, whether it is some radical sect of harm reduction where you think that you can't serve your community if you're not using drugs too, or some radical sect of like people, I almost just said radical sex, some radical sect of like AA people that are like
having radical sex with
each other. No, but like, you know, the radical edgelords of harm reduction that are like, if you're not shooting dope, you're not about it. Or the people in AA that are like, I've spilled more beer on my tie than you've ever drank in your life, kiddo. Or, oh, heroin addicts need not apply here at this AA meeting. It's like, there's literally stories in the back of the big book talking about like what happens if you don't welcome everyone in that's looking for a better way to live their life. Like, it's almost as if they like, kind of like with the Bible, like,
like Christianity,
people kind of just like don't actually read the book, and then just are like,
they go off of somebody else's interpretation of it.
And there's also like, this is my favorite thing to point out. Again, like I said, AA saved and changed my life. I love AA, but also quite literally, before we even get into the meat and potatoes of the big book, it says we do not own the monopoly on this thing. I don't think it says that verbatim, but it does say, like, we don't own the monopoly on recovery, so why are we acting as if everything else is less than?
Right.
I don't know.
And that's really,
I'm just
like,
a guy, you know?
That probably, like, bothers me, like, the less than thing more than, I don't know if I could say that, because like the casting out and like the you don't belong, or like come back when you're like ready, blah blah blah, like that actively,
you
like,
haven't hit your bottom, Austin.
Yeah, right. Go do some more research. But that is an active,
that is a really annoying dismissive thing that I've heard. I will give you that, sir.
It's very detrimental, and at this point, and it's usually like 9 times out of 10 it's like a guy who's never seen a rig or a pipe in his life telling somebody that, when they're like this fucking environment of drugs today is not the same as when people started telling people to go do their research. People
no,
die.
Doing research right now.
Go shoot fentanyl and see what happens.
It's fatal.
Yeah, and I want to throw a disclaimer out there because I felt like I was being kind of cold about like people on MAT trying to involve themselves in AA.
There's Tori working her 10th step. Go for it.
No, I feel like
I feel
like I misworded myself. A really great rule of thumb, no matter what, 100%. If anyone out there is listening that's dealing with that, talk to your doctor first.
Yeah.
Like if somebody fucking says get off methadone in 3 days, talk to your doctor.
Like imagine like because I've heard that from a lot of people, especially like participants that I've worked with here, where they're like, well, I went to this meeting, I got a sponsor, but they told me they wouldn't start the steps with me until I got off of this like life-saving medication I'm on right now. And I try to think of like putting it in my own like experience with like I had been on Suboxone before. I was kind of like abusing it when I was like using it. Like I wasn't using it the way that is like intended. You know, but if I was like, I'm on like what I consider to be life-saving medication, like for my own like psychiatric well-being, Tori even bought me this cute thing. It's a little orange.
Oh, yeah, that's
It's
fun.
a pill container, because I would always forget. I'm like so bad with meds. But it's like a little orange, and then you just push it, and out of the slice comes your meds for the day.
Oh, good.
So it's like a fun little thing.
That's sweet.
Because
It's like meds to make it fun.
Because sometimes you make friends that care about you in life, and that's good. And Tori's one of them. But I'm thinking about it this way. Like if my sponsor like told me like, hey man, stop taking like your mood stabilizer, your antidepressant, fuck it, stop taking your birth control too, see what happens. You know what I mean? Like all of these things that like
unmanageable real fast.
I would be in JFK. I would be at South County. It would not be good. You know what I mean?
But I'm also not convinced though that like it's all that common for people in AA to tell people to come off of like medication like
I've
that.
heard it enough. That's what I'm saying. Like
Especially
these
That's the
aren't
thing.
just
Maybe like I don't hang out with enough people that do things like that. Like I've heard participants say that, and I just say, "Oh, get another sponsor," and then they usually just do.
I've just been
That's
doing,
why like
I've been doing peer work for like over 4 years now, so it's like I've heard it like a fucking lot. Like I haven't heard it like in my own recovery circles, but I've mainly heard it like on the job.
That's kind of what I mean. I've heard it on the job, but like in like my own circles, I think that also has something to do with it. Is like the people that I hang out with have always been like nice and accepting. So like I get like weirded out when people are like, "Oh yeah, this person told me to get off my psych meds." Like I'm like, who the fuck are you around? Like find new people.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, they exist. It's not
It'd
everybody.
be like if someone was trying to learn about Jesus and they were like, I just keep going to the Westboro Baptist Church. I don't fucking get it. It's like, dude, just go to another one.
But like,
you'll be all right.
The reason I disagree on that is because like if connection is such a big part of this whole deal and the fellowship of it, because it's not always just somebody that's telling them that, right? So like I had a participant like 2 or 3 years ago who passed away and died of an overdose. And he called me, well, his mom called me first, or called the office looking for services, and she somehow got in touch with me. I talked with her, then got in touch with him. Sweet kid, like really good dude. He was on Suboxone, very involved in a 12-step fellowship and like his circle of people, his sponsorship family and home group and all of that, and they weren't aware that he was on Suboxone because he didn't feel like he could be open with it. But these are people like he had gone through treatment with. This was his circle that like it wasn't just like fucking find another sponsor. Like he lived with like 3 of these people. And he worked with these people, like they all worked in this like same place, and somehow or another, don't remember the details, someone at his job found out he was on subs. They didn't explicitly fire him for that, but like they more or less fired him for that. Like they kind of like made up some other reasons. The way it was presented to me, his roommates told him that they didn't want him living with them anymore, and that was explicitly because he was on Suboxone. And this
just
is
a quick interjection, because that just reminded me. My participant last week went to apply for a job as a BHT. They didn't hire him because he was on Suboxone.
Yeah, I think I heard about
You're
that.
probably sitting in the
Oh,
office for that one.
horrible.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. And
yeah, this is like a real actual issue.
Yeah, and doesn't that place where he got denied from have an MAT program?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what better person to work an MAT program but the person who has been able to do it and
Well,
done
you know
so
why
successfully.
treatment centers, a lot of them are
Yeah, because
offering
they
it
can
because
get
they want
money
the
and
funding.
shit for
Yeah.
it. And that like goes back to what I was saying. I never really finished that thought, but
I'm
like
sorry to cut your story off because it reminded
not,
me of
not
that.
there. It wasn't that. Before that, we
Yeah.
did it's conversation. You didn't do anything.
Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome. But good girl.
Oh my God, no.
No. You call me fucking daddy. Okay.
Move on.
Goes one way. So he so he no, before that, what I was saying is like a lot of that shit when they like actively exclude somebody from a meeting is like detrimental, but
Yeah.
kind of what bothers me more like as a personal thing, and it's like it doesn't bother me that much, but it's just a thing, is that view of, well, it's fine, but like it's not us, like it's a less than thing, or it's like it's cool, but as long as your end goal is blah 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 and blah 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 is abstinence. But that like whole thing of it's almost like more just conniving a way of like, we'll like pretend to accept you, but like we have hierarchy of this stuff, and that's just like annoying.
It's not
but it's not necessarily right. So anyways, but this kid, so he literally had to find a new place to live, again, like all on the basis of the fact that he was on Suboxone. His entire like social group and the people that like he had connection with were gone, and which is why he reached out for peer services, because he all of a sudden had nobody because they found out what medication they were on. And I'm sure like half of those kids were taking like large doses of Seroquel every night, and like none of that.
You know what isn't anybody's fucking business?
Yeah.
What meds anybody's on.
Sure.
Except for them and their doctor.
Right. But when they find out, and then like they like somehow like
you have to go live outside now.
And then, yeah. And I mean he ended up like he had a recurrence of use. He got stable, and then you know, like was all right for a little while, very engaged, but I mean he passed away alone in his apartment.
Overdose?
He was the only one living in that apartment.
They all left him, or he had to go find somewhere else?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just like one example that really hit home for me, because like I kind of watched that process happen.
It's like different when you like hear about it, and then because then like I don't know, like you hear about all sorts of things that happen in this world, and it's always that kind of like, I mean, I've been victim to it of like, I don't really know how true that is, or that could never be me, or no one I know has been through that.
Yeah.
But then like it literally happened last week, and that's like not the first time, and it's been more than a handful of times I've had participants experience some, or just people in general experience some type of stigma because of their medication. And it's not just like some progressive ass like Facebook group that I read it on. It's like it's someone sitting in my office that I'm supposed to be like coordinating care for.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, I'm trying to get a job, and they won't hire me because I'm on this medication that like,
yeah.
you know,
and it's something that he really wants to do, and would like give him purpose, which is really like what like for myself, speaking for myself, was what like allowed me to really like, kind of thrive in recovery, is having some sense of purpose.
Oh yeah.
And so like in that case, like you transfer the same line of thinking of just go find another sponsor. Well, just go fucking work for McDonald's, like, or go find another job. Like it doesn't always work that way. And like for that participant, like it wasn't just go find a whole other support group, and it just wasn't that easy. And in many cases, I'm sure it is, but in many cases, it's not either, because of the importance of that like fellowship and connection, and that just it sucks. Yeah, nothing to say about
she did
it.
the Robert De Niro face.
I was just saying you can get better friends.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's
That was all I
That
meant. That
sounds
sounds
Yeah, it
horrible.
sounds-
I'm sorry that you're.
No, it sounds like nice if that was the way it went, and
There's a lot of things that sound
I mean,
great.
yeah, I wish the world was different.
yeah,
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things that sound great that I wish were different, but in application, like, it's not fucking how anything works.
yeah.
And it is for some people. Like, I mean, at this point, like, if my sponsor was like, or if any of my friends like said something that was like against like what I believed to be true, that like was in alignment with like incongruence with
Hell yeah.
my
Word of the day, folks.
all right. So that was like if Tori's my best friend. If she like started going off on these tangents about like bipolar people or like something wild that was like part of my like way of life and like core identity, I'd be like, hey, I love you, but also we're not friends anymore and we're not in a band anymore because you're fucking off the sauce right now, and like that's not, I'm gonna just go hang out with other people now.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm like relatively fucking stable now. Like new people coming in just like grasping at straws trying to find people to like.
We're all on the same team.
I know.
Right?
I'm just
I
looking
know.
at you because you're right there.
Tori, what is with bipolar people?
Yeah, why do you hate people with mood disorders so much?
I don't know.
Tori, why do you hate people
just
who
don't-
use drugs?
I just don't get it.
But no, like, yeah, if somebody is new, just looking for anywhere to fit when we've spent, I mean, this is a common theme. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that we've all, people that struggle with this kind of shit, like we grew up not really feeling great and a part of for the majority of everything. Everything was kind of off all the time. So then you find this place where like you're told that things will be good and you'll feel like you belong, like, and you're trying to do that, and then you hear like one weird thing that you don't know is true or not. Like, it's kind of hard to be like, oh well, I thought this was the thing, I guess I'll go, I don't know what to do, you know. Like, but if you're like 6 years into it and you're stable and you figured out like who you are, I'm gonna be like, Tori, fuck you, why do you hate bipolar people? I'm not gonna hang out with you no more.
I just don't like them.
And then I'll go get another friend. But if you told me that 6 years ago, I'd be like, look at me. Should I do it?
Now's the time.
So Christina can cry on demand. So we'll let
Which
that
camera should I
happen.
look in?
Probably that one. Yeah.
Are you gonna
So
zoom?
while she's working up some tears, go for it. Oh, they're coming. Damn, that's
It's fast.
so impressive.
It's really fast.
She thought she was my best friend. And I thought it'd last forever, but it was all a lie.
God, I don't know if it's picking it up, but she's really
There's real tears
flowing
flowing.
up. Yeah, it's probably just about to breach.
It was all a fucking lie.
Really
And on that
work
note, I'm a
herself out.
sociopath. So anyway, moving on.
So
Tori doesn't hate bipolar people.
No,
I
people
also
with
understand there's
bipolar
discrimination for MAT.
Yeah, no,
Because I know I also never said there wasn't.
nobody
felt like there was a period-
No, I feel like you
I
feel
think
like we're like.
I think the seat
it's not-
positioning is
yeah,
making it
yeah.
funny.
Because I'm over here and you guys
No,
went
but
on a
Tori's
tangent
always-
and then both looked at me and said, it happens. And I made a Robert De Niro face because I was like, I thought we were on the same team. Because I understand it's very sad that kid got denied to work at a treatment center.
Yeah,
Drug tests are a thing.
yeah.
So I can't control that.
Call your local
But
representative. I'm just
here's the
kidding.
thing though.
That
I
is-
wish people
With
weren't
drug
discriminated
tests, like,
against.
I mean,
really do.
That's the weird thing to me is like you go to a like your normal place of employment and they're gonna send you to like Quest Labs for a pre-employment drug test, and guess what happens? You write your fucking prescribed medications down, and that's protected by HIPAA. And
Wait, can we talk about how people don't know what
like on
HIPAA
Oxy
is?
get
Right.
hired? What?
Oh,
Don't know what is?
what did you say?
With what?
I said, can we talk about how people don't know what HIPAA is?
I was just agreeing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe another time.
So you're protected by like privacy and shit.
Yeah, with your
But,
doctor.
Yeah. So that's a prescribed medication.
But if I
somehow,
told
like,
if I
it's-
told Tori what you're on, I didn't violate HIPAA.
There's this wild misconception.
Wait, what?
It's like permeating our culture on a deep, deep level where people literally don't know what fucking HIPAA is. So like if you
right, they
if
just
I'm
apply
on,
HIPAA
like,
to everything.
Right, like if
Yeah.
I'm on whatever I'm on, Prozac, but pretend like I'm super
It's a
like
great ad for Prozac.
like I only hell yeah, dude, shit rips.
Get on Prozac, you can cry on command.
Dude, get on Prozac and you can become a method actor just like me. All of this can be yours. And if you really want to spice it up, added bonus, Lamictal. But pretend that I don't openly talk about my medication.
Okay. Pretend
But
that-
I told you because you're my friend, and then you tell Tori that I'm on Prozac, and I get mad at you, and I'm like, he violated HIPAA, and I'm going to get a lawyer. It's like,
Yeah,
hey,
no.
Austin, you're not my doctor.
Yeah.
I'm not protected under any confidentiality.
That's not how
You're just
HIPAA
being
works.
a dick telling Tori my secrets.
Yeah, you should probably just like not go and tell people.
Like, why
other
would you
people's-
tell my best friend who hates bipolar people what bipolar medication I'm on?
Right.
Huh?
People with bipolar disorder.
Yeah, whatever. I identify however I want.
It's for the folks out there.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry.
I'm mostly shticking.
Okay.
Shticking.
What were we saying? So HIPAA. Yeah, when you go to apply for a job.
Oh, we were talking about drug tests.
Yeah. So it shouldn't matter. Like, there's a lot of people like who get hired for their job and
We're
like
gonna
they
have a
take
lot of hot
Oxy
takes on how businesses
on a
can be
regular
ran.
basis. I guess why I'm so like why we're having this conversation right now, and like it's just the fact of the matter, like as people who work for Rebel Recovery, like that's a lot of what we deal with, and what our more accurately what our participants deal with.
Yeah.
But I was really fortunate in that I would like hear stupid shit when I would go to certain AA meetings, and not the one that I've kind of just stuck to after a while. But I had something that I know a lot of people, and I would probably say most people that come into recovery didn't have. And that's like, I had a person in my life that I met like my first day at the Recovery Research Network.
Was it Matt?
Yeah. Matt, our
Big
good
ups to
friend
Matt.
Hopefully he'll be here Saturday to
Big
get
Daddy
on this
Matt.
guy. But he like gave me what I wish anybody could have, and that was like an open and judgment free, like for one, like a meaningful connection with somebody that I hadn't had in a really long time. But two, like he allowed me the chance to like work the steps and didn't like set these kind of arbitrary rules, because I told him I wanted to work the steps, and I told him like, this is where I'm at. This is like, I mean, he met me at a MAT outpatient clinic, so obviously like he knows I'm on Suboxone, and there was never like any kind of like my first AA meeting, I didn't really like know that was a thing.
Really?
Yeah, I had to like learn that for myself, because I was so fortunate for my first exposure to that, to the sponsorship sponsee relationship, or like just working the steps, was so open and accepting. And it sucks that not everybody gets that, and that's like the exception and not necessarily the rule.
And it's like shitty because like one of the things that is taught is to finally get open and honest with not only yourself but others, right? So it's like a lot of people have the experience of once they finally do get open and honest, they're shunned for that one piece, that one, medication piece or whatever. It just like puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and I hate it because like what was said, oh my vape, I'm so angry, thank you. But like what was said, like the actual like program of AA is chef's kiss.
Yeah.
But everybody came in and was like, I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge. You can't take this, and you can't take that, and you can't say this word, or you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
Call the police.
Yeah.
Call him Bill Wilson, rise him up from the dead.
Killing me with a voice.
Yeah.
I mean, like, in
It's
that,
fucking
like,
whack.
Jesus Christ teaching's pretty fire. Don't reflect, like,
Yo,
most
Jesus
of
was
what's
so
in the church.
cool. Can we
Yeah.
talk about it?
It was. And, like, that, I mean, realistically, like, the teachings and principles of 12 steps are pretty much aligned with that. And then, just conveniently people twisted things in very much the same way. And that's just how it goes. And sometimes, like, I think, like, in religion, it's probably easier to do the whole take what you need and leave the rest, because, like, my spirituality doesn't necessarily require, like, my connection with other people around me who have similar spirituality, whereas, like, that's almost, like, a key point to having like a good experience in something like
those
a
like
fellowship.
secular like religions and stuff. like going to like churches or like synagogues and stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying like in order to get something out of like something like Buddhist teachings or the teachings of Jesus Christ, like I don't have to like go to a place of worship and get involved. Yeah. And like I guess you could say like just to put the 12 steps into practice, like you guys, like Tori said, she doesn't go to like much meetings anymore or whatever, and so she can put those. But she can still continue to put those into her life. But initially,
it's also extremely personal to different people, because some people, like, I wouldn't recommend that most people do what I'm doing. Like, if somebody like truly is like needs AA to like stay sober and live like a healthy, normal life, like they need to do that. I don't have a problem with like taking what I learned from AA and like putting the rest down and taking a break and stepping away and like still using those principles. Like same with like, I still love Jesus Christ, but I don't like go to church regularly. But like,
but in early recovery,
that would be a nightmare.
Without all of that, right?
No, not at all.
Right.
But I mean, it's more of a networking thing. Really, is what
it's connection. Like, I mean, there's that whole fucking thing now. I mean, I guess we could probably call it cliche, but that addiction is the opposite of connection.
Yeah.
Connection the opposite of addiction. But it's true, and that's like a very meaningful part of those fellowships. And then like a lot of people don't get to have that, and then so it's hard to take what you need and leave the rest if like.
And that's one of the pieces of why I believe so heavily in like the syringe exchange and believe so heavily in, you know, safe injection sites. Like eventually, hopefully, let's get that rolling.
But
like,
New York.
I know, thank God. But like, take the like public safety aside and take the like, you know,
just human connection.
Exactly, like because drug use is such an isolating thing in and of itself. You know, typically, I mean, in my experience, it was either by myself or with like a boyfriend or like just like some friend. Like it was always pretty much me or like one or two other people. Like it's such an isolating lifestyle. And like, who cares if people are like doing drugs, if they're coming to a syringe exchange or they're coming to a safe injection site? Like just talking to someone that's going to talk to them like a human being, like that in and of itself is enough to like inspire some type of like hope. Like, so I would like, and I actually got, I don't know if you were you in this training that we had a few years ago?
Harm reduction psychotherapy.
No, it wasn't a harm reduction training. It was like some type of training, something or other. Okay. We've been to so many trainings that it's
maybe not
all blending together.
I might be able to tell.
But I remember because like one of the things that like when I was like doing a lot of like the street outreach and like peer work like that, like in the golden era, not the golden era, everything's the golden era of Rebel, but like the early days, right? When we didn't have like all these like specialized programs and stuff, like I would do a lot of like outreach to people that were experiencing homelessness, especially in like John Prince and stuff like that, or like outside of the MAT clinics. And like I would like not even talk about like their substance use or anything like that. I'd be like, yo, like what kind of like music do you listen to?
Yeah, we talk about Jerry all the time.
Yeah, like all that shit with people, like just literally talking to them like they're human beings, not like someone else trying to do like some half-ass biopsychosocial on them. Like, hey man, like what's up? Like I remember there was this one guy outside of TRN, and he like I like asked him what like his favorite music was, and he was this old ass fucking guy. He was like, oh, I love Jim Morrison, and I was like, bet. And I'm like, when's the last time you listened to music, dude? And he's like, I couldn't even tell you. And I whipped out my phone. I was like, what song are we listening to? And we just like sat there, kicked it. Like there was no end goal. There was no like, all right, I got to get you into treatment now. It's like, let's just fucking hang out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I brought that up in this like training. I was like, yeah, you know, my first like what I usually do with people that I'm meeting with is like I'll talk to them about like human stuff. And like this one chick like had like such like an aggressive like negative reaction to that. Really? And she was like, no, we need to be focusing on like getting them services and getting them help. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
well, people tend to be more receptive to that kind of stuff if you treat them like a human being first that has interests outside of drugs or mental health challenges. Because, you know, I don't know if anybody knows this, but human beings are not defined by one thing. It's a whole thing. You know, we're complex.
Yeah.
We have interests.
I mean, that's what we do, like, at the syringe exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like people coming up and, like, we just tell them, like, here's how you can inject more safely and more sterilely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that connection piece is a huge part of it. And, like, when we have people that we've worked with for years, and the only thing that's going to get them to us and us to them is, like, basically based around their substance use and just being able to, like, give them supplies and for them to be able to get supplies. But when the time comes that they, like, decide, I want to, like, look for help, I want to start making some changes, like, it makes it that much easier. And we've already, like, established that. And I mean, we've seen that with participants that we work with. And
it's the instillment of the trust too, which was, like, I'm glad that was instilled in me so early on, like, when I started working here, of, like, the demographic we serve is so used to being denied because of, like, socioeconomic status or, like, whatever, or, like, not willingness to fit into a certain, like, model of recovery. And then just the fact that they've been fucked over so many times by these, like, agencies, especially, like, state funded ones that are, like, notoriously not great, like, things like that, you know, and they don't trust anybody, so they come to another agency. They don't know us from a fucking hole in the wall, so why would they expect anything to be different?
right.
So, like, it's crazy what talking to someone like a human being will do for the connection that you can foster, like, going forward and developing, like, a recovery plan or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Goes a long way.
I have a question, Austin.
Yeah.
Thoughts on people, because I know we talked about, like, employment and medication use. Thoughts on employment and for people with problematic substance use, like, currently engaging in it.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
so, like, I think the defining term is problematic. Like, if somebody, like, so let's say, for instance, like, I need another helper for the RAD program. And, like, there is criteria for it, and then it's laid out for me or whatever. Like, this is just a for instance, but, like, it would be preferred if that person uses drugs. And if they use drugs, great. But if they use drugs problematically, like, no, not great. I want the best person for the job.
Right.
And if, like, they happen to use drugs, and, like, them happening to use drugs brings, like, particularly using drugs in a way that is manageable and, like, in a way that they, like, employ harm reduction and, like, aren't in the midst of problematic and chaotic substance use, then they have different experiences that they can bring to the table, and, like, all the better for it. But that's different than actively in problematic, chaotic substance use.
Because at the end of the day, a job is a job.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to be able to show up for sure, but also, like, how, like, in our case, like, if our express purpose is to help other people, and, you know, we're dealing with our own crises or our own chaos, I don't know how we can effectively help other people, or we're trying to support somebody who is in the midst of the chaotic substance use. And I just, like, I think that people who use drugs should fully have, like, the ability to get gainful employment in all sorts of arenas. And I don't discriminate on what drug is okay for that and what is not. The only thing that, in my opinion, I'm going to base that on is, are they able to, like, do their job effectively? Are they able to, like, manage their life, their responsibilities?
Right.
And if not, like, you know, it's not cool.
I feel the same way about that, because it's like, do whatever you want, but, like, when other people that you work with, like colleagues and stuff, like, if Tori was, like, absolutely just getting, like, totally high on crack every day and, like, making me do her job,
Yeah, I wouldn't be a good employee.
I'd be like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, do I think that she deserves to, like, have work? By the way, everybody, she's not
Yeah, Tori's not smoking.
She's not
I
using
haven't
crack.
smoked crack for a long time.
But see, she's managing it.
Managing, that's why I can hold down a job.
We literally had no idea until right now that she's been smoking crack.
And that's why I'm here tonight.
This
but
is
yeah,
actually an intervention.
because like, you know, there's plenty of people that can. I've actually had times in my life where I was like using certain substances and like I was able to work, maybe not like 110% of my capability at most things, but like I was still getting my job done. I was getting my scope of work done. But then there came a time when I was like nodding out driving a rehab van.
Yeah, that's
Probably
no
should be
bueno.
fired, and guess what happened? Got fired. You know, like
Yeah.
it's not that weird. I can't get mad and be like, "Oh, you hate drug users." It's like, dude, I could have killed people.
Mm-hmm.
Could have killed myself and people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that once you're not able to effectively, you know, perform your scope of work, whatever it may be, whether it's at Whole Foods or at the White House, like you got to take a look at that and not like victimize. Like if I'm the person that's like experiencing chaotic drug use and like something happens, like I would hope that I wouldn't victimize myself. I would hope that could be a catalyst to take a step back and be like, shit, man, you know, consequences of my actions, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, as Tori says, I wish things were different and not everybody operates that way.
And I guess
Did I say that?
No, you kept saying, I wish things were different.
Yeah, I wish things were different.
I wish people weren't discriminated against. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I wish it was different. Some people suck.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like
That's on God, baby.
It's
That's on
easy
God, that's
for
all I
us
can
to
say.
like have that stance when we're also not in the midst of problematic
Right,
substance use.
exactly.
So it's like when you are in the midst of that, like it's probably easier to like take any kind of personal responsibility
Mhm.
off yourself and like feel victimized. But I don't know. I just think like I don't think harm reduction is defined by like using drugs. I think harm reduction is defined by like doing things in a way that allow you to continue to live your life in a manageable way and literally reduce potential harms that are associated with substance use. And that doesn't mean like becoming more problematic and chaotic with the substance use.
Right.
But
I mean, if we really want to break it down to like dum-dum terms, like wearing a seatbelt is harm reduction.
yeah.
Brushing your teeth so
Yeah.
your teeth don't fall out of your head or you get heart failure. Because I don't know if you guys knew this. If you don't take care of your teeth, it could spread to your heart. Bad
That
things
creeps
happen.
in through the gums.
Creeps in through the gums,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's harm reduction, brushing your goddamn teeth. Like, it's not all just about substance use. And I think if you're talking to people that don't know anything about harm reduction, explaining it that way can like kind of be like, oh, that's right.
Right.
Like a lot of things in life outside of drug use is harmful or can cause harm.
But it's like what we were talking about, like where like anything goes to one extreme because like we can, I can see how it gets easy to be wrapped up in like the like hardcore like people who use drugs should be able to gain gainful employment and like yeah 100%. But like if you get so far into that, you can't just ignore like you still got to be like a good employee
Right.
and like the people who use drugs can. But if you're in problematic substance use, like it's not the same thing. And like you have to kind of expect society and employers to expect
Right.
like
And rightfully
manageability from
so,
you.
though. Like,
Yeah.
rightfully so. You know, like places of business, whatever the business may be, whatever service sector of, labor it is, there's jobs that need to be done. And if they cannot be done effectively, then they need to be replaced. And that, like, I don't think that's shitty.
Right. I agree. So before we wrap up, and I want to do
Final
this
thoughts,
again
Tori.
with both of you guys. I'm gonna get you
Yeah,
both
don't hire someone if they're in
Yeah.
the throes of active addiction.
that. I'm gonna get you guys both on individually, but I'd like to do this again because I think you guys are fun.
You'll never separate us.
I'll separate you.
I'll get you alone.
So I felt like super uncomfortable when I said the good girl thing, just so you know.
I loved
like,
that.
It really, like, when it came out, I was like, fuck, that's not bueno. But
That's why I cried. It was a delayed reaction.
Yeah, for that.
Did you like when Austin called you good girl?
Austin's my abuser.
She says into the camera. Yeah, okay. I did want to, like, ask, though, and again, like, we'll do this again, maybe, like, think of some things that Tori has more opinions on. I'm just kidding.
I don't like
you
how
said yourself.
I know. I
like,
don't like how I
have
came off in this. I feel like I came off.
You came
like,
off fantastic.
really
It was
quiet.
perfect.
To be fair,
And you
Austin
gave
asked
the
me,
voice.
and then I said, Tori, hang out with me at the podcast. So, like, I knew about this for days. This
That's
was
true.
sprung upon you.
That's true. You weren't mentally prepared. You're just along for the ride.
You're just someone that smokes crack secretly and hates bipolar people, and
Can't
it's
stand them.
fine.
I can't stand bipolar people. Honestly, I think it's fake.
Sorry, people with bipolar disorder.
They're very sarcastic for those of you out there who have no idea who these
I
people
honestly
are.
don't
I'm
believe-
just, like, imagining like what's like
Everything
somebody
that I've
else's
said tonight,
assuming.
I don't believe a word of what I said. Everything was just for show.
Yeah, you can't
Like, I
take
just was,
any
like,
of it seriously.
regurgitating things I've heard
Sure.
online. None of that was my own belief.
Okay.
So,
People
One thing
are
I do believe,
gonna have no idea what to do.
bipolar illness isn't real.
You guys- this is like gonna get taken off YouTube.
why? It's not misinformation.
You see the stuff they take off these days.
Yeah, come for me, fact checkers.
I did want to ask though, like before we go,
They did rob the election.
Like, here, right? Can we? I'm glad we're all gonna talk. About
Yeah,
it.
I'm
We're
glad.
not.
Can we?
I'm glad that it was received well because I was kind of silent because the whole time I was just thinking like about gas prices.
Because I've been waiting for a platform to talk about how this is 100% on
God
the
damn.
back of Joe Biden.
I know.
Because that's how gas prices work.
Exactly. No, dude.
Yeah.
You want to know who's been putting "Let's Go Brandon" stickers all over Palm Beach County's gas tanks?
Mm.
You're looking at him.
Yeah.
All right. So I want.
Check our emails, dude. That's all I'm saying.
You guys are nuts. My face hurts. All right. Did you, like, in your past, when you were in the midst of your own problematic substance use, were there any, like, harm reduction, like, resources that you utilized or, like, techniques that you utilized because there weren't resources around? Or, I mean, was it just all willy-nilly and whatever? Like, if you had to think about it.
Mine was entirely willy-nilly use.
Okay.
I had no access to harm reduction. One time in Baltimore, an ex-boyfriend went to get drugs, and then he was like, "Oh, this is so cool. They had like they had like a syringe exchange van." So I heard rumors of it one time, and I wasn't even there.
Mystical
It was a
syringe
mystical van
exchange
that gave
van.
out syringes.
Yeah.
But I had no access to that. I wish that there was more agencies like Rebel Recovery or just peer support or anywhere where I could have gotten more human connection. Because Christina was right. It's extremely isolating and dangerous, and it would have been nice to have had access to literally anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my experience with harm
Did
reduction.
you, like, make efforts to, like, get clean syringes how you could, or, like...
I would try to buy clean syringes. I would get a lot of shit from CVS employees. Like, I'd be like, my brother's diabetic. And they'd be like, no, he's fucking not, and I don't have to sell you these. So I would, like, sometimes buy syringes from drug dealers. Didn't go great. So, yeah, no, almost no harm reduction in my story
Yeah.
at all.
Interesting. I'd go into pharmacies, like, real prepared. Like, I'd go in, give them the gauge, and so I'd be like, 30 gauge half inch, and they'd be like, where's your prescription? I'm like, I don't have it, but, like, I use Humalog, like, 3 units twice a day. Like,
See, here's the
had,
thing.
like,
You don't look like somebody that uses, like, IV
Today?
drug use, dude.
No, I was,
You
like,
met me in
grossly
Long
underweight
haired
with green
Austin.
hair. I wasn't
Yeah.
fully
I
one.
totally looked like somebody who used drugs at many points in my life.
All right, fair.
Though there were points where I was using drugs that I didn't necessarily give off that appearance.
True.
But I would go in, like,
Opiate
prepared.
specific. Like, you don't look like somebody that, like...
Because I shower.
injects heroin. You just don't.
Yeah.
I don't
That's because
know.
you're meeting him now.
Well, I met him
She
when he
met
had
me like right after.
Oh, I didn't know.
But she also is saying currently because when she did meet me, I had hair down to my ass.
Austin and I
was
both met each
pretty
other
gnarly.
during like our like peak wook phases.
Yeah.
It was really
That's
awesome.
adorable.
I might have had some higher peaks, but it was pretty,
Yeah.
It was
Well, I
pretty
was
peak.
I was like abstinent at the time, so I just looked the part. I
Yeah.
wasn't like spun out.
Yeah.
But still not all there.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. Like,
what about you?
well, okay. I thought we were gonna talk about you, but I like to talk about myself.
Go ahead, talk about me. Okay.
No, I so in Connecticut there wasn't shit, honestly,
That's
and like
surprising.
I know, and maybe it exists. I just wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
This was like between 2012 and 2014 is when it was really popping off for me. In my drug use up there, as far as like a drug that I considered to be the thing that like affected me problematically, like opiates was like my bread and butter, right? So like I had been using substances since I was like 13, but this was the one that really like was like, hey man, this isn't good.
Yeah.
But the only thing I remembered was going to see like this outpatient place for like therapy, and they told me that they wouldn't provide me therapy if I still smoked weed. Like they wouldn't help me get off heroin if I still intended on smoking weed.
Jesus.
And I was like, that's fucking dumb.
Yeah.
So I just was like,
so.
I'm not doing that. And then when I moved down here, I'd continued using from like 2014 on and off until 2016 when I finally got like good. And I would like, this was when I was like willy-nilly on Suboxone. Like I would either be like overusing it, or like if I couldn't get dope, like I would take a Suboxone. And like looking back on it, like I wasn't consciously practicing harm reduction, but when I think about it, I'm like, well, maybe that one dose of Suboxone kept me from like a contaminated batch that like could have killed me, like, you know,
doing some like sketchy shit to obtain.
Right.
Like I always say, like, because it is like there are people who like abuse it, quote unquote. Like before I had like a habit, like my buddy in high school, like he was the first kid to ever like get a prescription of subs. Like,
Yeah, Suboxone was really good for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that tiny little bit. It was a lot, but but like, so you could abuse it that way. But in terms of abusing it, like I'm gonna take subs now and then like do some dope later.
Yeah.
But like that's harm reduction.
Right.
That like keeps people alive in a lot of instances, or it keeps them from going out and doing some like sketchy high risk behavior to get dope.
Cause like I was a high risk behavior kind of gal.
Yeah.
You know, and like I only shared a needle with my boyfriend because in my and his brain we were like, we're already swapping other stuff. You know, it's fine. If we give each other Hep C, it's logical. Fucking fine. Yeah. You know, so I would only share a needle with him, and then we would also like, and we literally didn't know what harm reduction was at the time. We were just like going off vibes. So like he would do a dose first, and then like we'd chill for a sec,
15,
and then I would do it.
That's real smart.
And like
for
the
somebody,
amount of times that I've woken up to him fucking hitting me, or me hitting him to like bring him back, and vice versa, was like if both of us had done a shot at the same
time, a lot
time,
of self-control on your
we'd be
end.
fucked. But
like
then
watching
also
somebody do a shot and then waiting 15 minutes.
Well, I wouldn't wait 15 minutes. That's a little.
That's
much.
I was gonna say. I was like, what are you?
That's a little much.
Tell you to do,
no, he would do it. I'd watch him get the rush, catch a nod, and I'd be like, "Cool, can I go now?"
Yeah.
And then I'd go, and vice versa. But yeah, we've both saved each other multiple times, and I can only imagine as if we both like hit at the same time and both fell out, like, what would be the reality is probably I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah, if we're getting more abstract with it, I like to use the buddy system, and then I usually had Narcan on me, which I bought from drug dealers, which is kind of hilarious. Like, you just old school had Narcan.
Yeah.
And then
shout out to old school.
Yeah, he was cool. And then I had like the Suboxone thing that was nice. So okay, I did use harm reduction, but
sorry, I probably should have clarified more of that. Like not.
Well, I should.
Like syringe, but.
And it's funny to like
and we don't
look
necessarily
back.
know. Like we don't attach harm reduction to it. We're just doing.
I had no
shit
fucking idea. It was like an instinctual thing.
Alive. Yeah.
And like especially with like sex work and stuff, like I wasn't choosing it, but like all the like drug dealers and stuff were like, go to the bodega and get a 3-pack of condoms. And I'm like, all right. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, thank God that happened. What? You know what I mean?
For sure.
Wild shit.
Hell yeah. Well, that's pretty much what I was looking for.
Yeah. Did your drug dealers make you go to the bodega for condoms?
No.
Or did you bring your own?
I never really
Used condoms. Austin's never really used condoms.
Yeah, he
I've
just
used condoms, but those Trojan ecstasies, those were coming out like when I was starting to use condoms.
Were those like the really thin ones?
They were like shaped in a certain kind
Ribbed
of way.
for her pleasure?
Everything's fucking ribbed for her
There's
pleasure.
some really cool
They were
condoms
like-
that we have over there, and they make your dick look like it has tattoos on it.
Oh yes, they're those. They're the glow in the dark ones. We have all sorts
You
of
get
cool
some
shit.
rolling dice on it.
But
Ooh.
no, I did not have
It's
like,
tribal
drug
sleeve on your
dealers
dick.
Make
Yeah,
me
it
get
has, like,
condoms or
flames.
suggest that, but I did I employed harm reduction measures before I knew like the buzzword or term harm reduction. But I was also like, that's you guys probably know like just a big drug nerd. Like I've read about any drug before I ever did it. Like before I ever knew I would do it. I
What
kind of
was that
always knew
for
I
'em?
was gonna do all
What
this.
was it called? Blue
It was
light?
Blue light.
Yeah.
I was all over blue light. Arrowwood was like my bedtime stories from like 6th grade on.
For sure bought
Oh, I have like wild memories
Oh,
of being up late
100%.
on blue light.
Dude, Silk Road was
Wait, can you tell the story of when you tried to buy perks?
yeah. Let's hear.
I was I was in Houston, Texas, or a little bit north of Houston during Hurricane Harvey, and so all of my drug dealers' houses were underwater. And I wasn't familiar with Houston at all, so I went on Craigslist and I typed in. I was trying to be like kind of like underground about it, a little more discreet. So like looking for blues, which isn't discreet at all. And
You were looking for a blues musician.
yeah, I just said looking for blues, and then I was like ended up emailing back and forth with this guy, and he was like being kind of weird about it, and he was like, yeah, like I got the blues, and then he was like the prices weren't making sense, and like the volumes, like it wasn't adding up. And then I was like, what are we talking about here? And he was like, Viagra. And I was like, God fucking damn it. Like, I was so sick.
That's awesome.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
I have had a venture on Craigslist before. I mean, I actually got what I was looking for, but dog food. Dog food was like the Craigslist.
That's
term
like
for
that's like
heroin.
an old timey kind of. All right.
Wow.
You could look up for
That's
dog
like a
food.
70s
I didn't make the
term,
post.
right?
I just like searched like for like somebody selling dog food.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I would just drive
it's
around the hood and
successful.
yell, boy.
I wasn't
Boy.
at a place that I knew. That was the whole reason I was on
Yeah.
Craigslist.
It's hard traveling when you.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass, really.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll have to do this again. This was
Yeah.
fun. Silence. They don't agree.
Hare Krishna.
Clearly,
Hare
they're not on
Krishna.
board
I had a
with it.
great time.
Cool.
I had a great time. You know? When's this going up?
Soon as we're edited.
Cool, because I have to critique every single thing I've said and feel bad about myself after.
Are we feeling in congruence with one another?
I feel in congruence with you guys.
What if we all